Okay, good morning, everyone. Morning. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the May 13th meeting. They were emailed to you on May 19th. Would somebody like to make the motion to approve those minutes? Greg? Second? Sue? Is there any further discussion on the minutes? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Attached to your agenda is the budget report. We received a few investment earnings for our T-bill from the insured cash sweep. So the total revenues and financial sources is $15,793.64 for the month. Under the expenditure side, we did have my salary as well as a payment for the workers' compensation and a payment to Emory Designs for our monthly website maintenance. Another payment request came in from Betsy in regards to the website research project that we'll go over today. The amount of $8,500, I believe. So that'll show up on your next month's budget report. And then you see at the very bottom, the investments that we have to date. Are there any questions on the budget report? What happened this past month? There are none. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the budget?
I'll second
it. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On to our committee reports. Mr. Fitzgerald viewed the monthly bank reconciliation report. I think
Everything was in order.
all in order. Okay, good deal. On to our county report with Mr. Roll.
Morning, everybody. I'm gonna have Dennis do my report. He says my handwriting is horrible.
Not the handwriting is got beautiful.
Let's see, next week, we open the bids for the construction of the Great Saginaw Lake Discovery Center. Scott will tell you, you'll guess as good as anybody. Just find out on June 18th. That happens. Yesterday, we met and we approved an advance of $216,200 to the CRG for more engineering expenses at the Johnstown Commerce Park. This is on top of $215,000 we approved last year, but it's all coming back to grants. CRG has secured grant money, so they've been told to get it back to the county by June of next year. Okay. And I'm sure you're aware of the DRI ribbon cutting in Gloversville. I was able to attend, which was great. It was like a lot of good stuff happening in Gloversville right now. And so the CRG provided us with a project tracking sheet, 16 projects on the list, and 11 of them have already completed the financing, and 3 others are in progress on financing, and that's biggest step toward finally getting these projects going. So not only did these 5 get started or almost done and almost done, but 11 more are moving along quickly. So it's going well. I hope I didn't steal any CRG thunder, but that was the report that Ron gave us at our last committee. Yeah, good stuff. That's my report.
Any questions from Mr. Roll? If not, we'll move on to Mr. Wilson for the CRG report.
And likewise, Tom wanted to do my report, but he's too tired. So good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody here. Always enjoy coming to these meetings. So this is a report for June, CRG. And no new loan requests were received this month. CRG's request of New York State for additional money for the countywide loan pool is moving forward. New York State reached out to the CRG to let us know they're still looking at it. Or looking into it, I should say. The 2005 $300,000 micro enterprise grant amendment is moving forward with the state. We anticipate final state approval by the third week in June, so that's right around the corner. CRG has not received any more RFPs since the last meeting. CRG initiated a meeting with the Parkersfield and Empire State Development to try to free up some of the capital that was approved several years ago. Both CRG and the IDA are working on several housing and industrial initiatives together. CRG personnel attended the New York State Economic Development Council's annual meeting last week. CRG participated in the 2025 Brownfields Developer Summit. There were over 300 registrants from around the state. CRG participated in regional EPA Brownfields roundtable discussions. CRG participated in the New York State Semi meeting with a focus on supply chain and support businesses for the high-tech initiatives with Micro, Global Foundries, and Wolfspeed. CRG brought EPA on a tour of the Tryon and Fashion Tanning sites to show the need for additional EPA assistance. CRG and HRP Associates met with the mayor brought out to talk about several sites in the village where EPA money may be needed. CRG is still working through the $549,000 workforce grant for the New York State Catalyst Program. CRG is working on several housing transactions. CRG is working through the New York State grant process with the Empire State Development grants previously awarded for engineering work, Johnson Commerce Firm. Empire State Development conducted their public hearings and released the state-approved ESD grants. We are still several months away from receiving the grant proceeds. Lastly, CRG Brownfields program is moving forward. We have submitted 8 requests to the EPA phase S. I don't know what that means. Phase S or phase one. Phase one. Okay. Phase one. They have approved 7. One is still under review, and the phase one are complete. That concludes my report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Wilson? I will just note that the third item there on the report, the 2025 $300,000 micro enterprise grant amendment. This is a new process that ESD has approved more or less, and really it was spearheaded by the CRG. Previous to this, every time you wanted to apply for more funding, you had to go through a whole application process. Because of the efficiency that the CRG has been with the micro enterprise grant program, they were able to convince ESD to go through a simple amendment process. A lot less paperwork, and you basically show that if you have your previous grant funds already allocated, and I forget how much of you had to have spent out, you can just apply for an amendment for more funds. So it's been very, very efficient for them. The other thing is, and Sue and I were talking about future IDA trainings. We could surely ask Ken Adamczyk, who really is responsible for managing the micro enterprise grant, to come in at a future meeting. He can kind of go over that whole process, what it is, what it isn't, just so we're all very familiar with it. And when we're out in the public, we can speak about that. So if you have an interest in that, I can arrange for that. Today we have Mr. Russo of National Grid, but something you want to do, I can definitely arrange for that at a future meeting.
Okay, that would be good. I'm a member of that board, and it is interesting, the process, and everyone thinks that anyone can apply for it, but not, there are specifics and rules for us.
Yeah. So,
All right, I'll just say on item number 10, the Global Foundries announced $16 billion last week to go in and its plants in New York and Vermont. And then Wolfspeed has been in the news because they're going to file a Chapter 11.
really?
But it's a dispute between the senior bondholder and the junior debt holder. So Wolfspeed is a multi-billion-dollar company, and they had been transferring their work from Durham and Raleigh up to Marcy. They have 500 people in Marcy. Right now, the indications it's gonna have no impact on that operation.
Okay.
So seems to be a dispute between the creditors at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
And today, for the very first time, we have the new executive director of the chamber, Mary Beth Schultz.
Hello, everyone. I didn't have a report written because my first day was last Thursday, so it's been hit the ground running. But I am Mary Beth Schultz. I am now the executive director of the Fulton Montgomery Regional Chamber. I come with a heavy ag background. Grew up on our family farm and then was in ag sales and went back to the farm and during COVID and needed to get back out and network and marketing and doing this again. So I really enjoy it. We had a really good event last week for the sports award banquet for Fulton County. And I'm working on building out a lot of more member added benefits for small businesses within both Fulton and Montgomery counties. But there's a lot of events and if you, we've written a lot of grants for my own farm and if I can be any assistance at anything or if anything is needed. Here,
Where's your farm?
Canada. So I built, I took it just from raising the animals and raising the crops to making it a value added products. We make our own salsas and buffalo chicken wing dips. I integrated our business pretty heavily, so that way it's more applicable to fast-paced families that need quick meals, taking big meals, things like that. And just built up the business and made it efficient enough that they don't need me anymore. In November, I kind of realized that and was like, wow, what the heck am I doing? So
Welcome.
Schultz farm. Yep. So we do quite a bit of agritourism too. We're part of the farm to table tour and we host a farm to table dinner on our farm where we invite 150 guests to our farm for a high-end dinner experience. And we pull people we go to the Syracuse regional market, so we bring out quite a few people from Syracuse to this area. But I have a lot of background in that, so if anybody gets any. I'm happy to help.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mary Beth. On to some old business. Again, I don't really have a report for Nexus Renewables, and we did not have our the meeting that was canceled by Nexus. And per Mr. Parrish, they're still, the town of Johnstown is still in their moratorium. It's in their council's hands, so you can report on that. T-bills.
Is that moratorium for both solar farms and battery?
Yep. Yep,
Okay.
combined, I understand.
Okay.
Under the T-bills, we see we are all current at the moment, but in August, our T-bill number 4 will be due. So we'll look at that in July and early August. All right, moving on to the website research project, making strides now. Emery Designs completed the audit of the 5 websites and supplied us with a draft unifying economic development and tourism web experience. And Mary Beth, since you're here,
Yeah.
we didn't go over this whole, okay. So been a couple of years in the making, but the simplified, I guess, analysis here is between the IDA and the CRG and the chamber and workforce solutions in the county and the county's tourism website, 44 Lakes. There's a lot of repetition. And all of the websites seem to be competing with one another. So there was a committee established, really led by Sue and Kent Karish from the CRG, and coming up with a strategy to, I guess, make all of our websites more effective and efficient. So this draft here is an analysis that Emery Designs conducted for us and basically did an audit of all of the websites And as you go through this, I thought it was pretty interesting how she put it together. She tried to really draft it so that everybody could understand the issues. There's personas that were created, which you can see, we'll go over kind of what those are. Just to show, you know, how they're competing with one another. And then in the end is recommending this one portal that will then kind of send if somebody's searching, whether they're searching through the web or now, when we started this, we really were talking about the AI impact, but now the AI impact is so great that there's a lot of information in here about how people are searching through ChatGPT or their Google or their Siri and you know, asking questions of that, expecting answers rather than going to a website. So that's kind of the analysis that's being conducted. And if you want to sit down, we can talk about it further at some point. But I don't think we can. So anyway, hopefully everybody was able to read this first draft. Just another note that Emory Designs is still going to be doing the CDI interviews, that's the customer development interviews. Continue to generate this list of potential interviewees. She's looking for at least 10 on each category, and she wants to interview at least 5. We're not quite there yet.
Needs names,
Yeah.
especially for workforce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tab with them.
Yeah, Sue and Ken have started to assist on that. Ron and I have been trying to populate it, but hopefully we will get that started sooner. We knew that was going to be going to take the longest, especially when she starts contacting these folks and arranging their schedule. So anyway, so we won't go through the whole thing today. You know, first portion of this is really what the objective is. Okay, with all of our multiple websites, and the purpose of the report is to audit 6 of the most important public-facing websites, identifying overlapping content, duplicate efforts, and visitor experience issues, analyze how these sites compete with each other, search engine rankings and AI-generated responses, introduce a clear framework of visitor personas, guide more effective content strategy and navigation, and then recommend improvements in content clarity, user experience, and discoverability, and propose the creation of a single task-oriented web portal that routes visitors to the appropriate agency without replacing or diminishing the role of the existing sites. And that was one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that we all kind of maintained our own identity. So you'll see going through the first couple of pages, you know, the first one is the IDA. This is their audit, and it's broken down into strengths and improvements, and then what the user experience is, and then the search competition. So, you know, our strengths for the IDA is a clear focus on economic growth and site development, highlights available land, tax benefits, and agency leadership. And we do provide updated news articles that demonstrate the expertise that we have. Improvements, visitors may not understand what an IDA is or how it differs from other agencies. Okay, and I think you'll see that across all the other websites as well. Some content repeats what's also on the CRG and county websites, which, right, we knew that. No easy to use tools like tax savings calculators or application guides. And then, you know, under the user experience, you can see what that's recommending. Then the search competition, you know, again, shares keywords with the county and CRG for phrases like Fulton County incentives. Okay, we all provide Fulton County incentives. And then less likely to be quoted in AI search results unless it uses structured data. Okay, again, you'll see in the bottom there under the supporting documentation, on the left column, the types of research, comprehensive website plan, et cetera, and then the customer personas that were created, that you'll see in the back, that were the personas that would interact with the website. CRG, you know, the attractive website under the strengths provides tools for small business owners and investors, identifies target industries clearly. Improvements, visitors don't always understand the difference between the CRG and the IDA, right? Some pages repeat tourism and economic content found elsewhere, cut off interactive tools, etc. We'll go through all of these. You see the counties as well. Interestingly enough, because of the counties.gov, the Google and AI tools prioritize this site over others. I didn't know that. So if you have that .gov, they're prioritized more so than the other organizations. There's 44 lakes, improvements there. And then the chamber, similarly, and then workforce solutions. And as you go through, you know, she has things broken down into the repetitive content and the recommendations. Again, continues on why we're doing right now, how people are searching, and then under the opportunity on page 13, what this portal would do. Okay. And so on. And then starting on page 15, moving forward, you'll see the various personas. Pretty interesting, you know, how the personas are created. And those personas were then used to navigate each website. And basically to identify, you know, what the confusion is, etc. So in the very end, again, the unified portal, purpose of the portal. Again, it does not replace any of the existing websites, which, you know, was important for us. Support AI powered features, etc. And then a recommendation for the types of navigation. So anyway, it's quite lengthy. I had to read it a couple times. But that's the start of what this report is. And then obviously when she completes with the customer development interviews, continue to be amended until it's finalized. Any questions, comments? I've sent a few edits back to Betsy so far. Is this what we were thinking we would receive?
I like it.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty clear in terms of the analysis of each page that we currently operate. I think it gives us clear direction of how we can start to blend our purposes within the landing page. I'm excited to see the next step. I assume that next step, once the profiles are finished, or the interviews are conducted, then it's a matter of stepping into an initial design for landing page, right?
Yeah, so I think once the report is finalized, you know, I think at that time, we'll get our committee back together. Then, you know, Betsy will present the report in more detail, obviously, and have a next steps, which I think that's what it would be. It'd be, okay, we all agree that this is the approach. You know, we get a proposal from her, I assume, to start that design process, and who pays for it, how we pay for it, who's gonna manage it, all those kind of questions. Yeah, will have to be vetted and we'll figure that out. So, all right. Thank you. Keep you updated on the interview list. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Great. Okay, moving on and with the old business, our senior housing initiative, City of Johnstown. See on page 5. Last month we took all the necessary actions, and today we have the transfer agreement between the City of Johnstown and the IDA, as well as the option agreement to be executed with 5 corners of the IDA. Kara has everything. That I did confirm that the property is on the county's insurance policy, which covers the IDA. So that has been done. I've had anything.
Since the last meeting, I think we talked about the indemnification issue, that they dropped that request, so that was removed from the contract. and all the other changes that were straightforward were made. So, yeah, we've got everything to sign today. And we'll get those deeds recorded and then we'll get fully executed copies with 5 corners for all the documents. So, and that option lasts for 4 years. So we'll see how they progress with their application to HCR.
Right, Sumi did reach out to myself, as well as Ron, and the mayor, some others, our Office for the Aging, for some, support letters, for his application. Dave, did you make any headway? I sent it to Dave too, to get something from the, city of the Johnstown School Board.
Yeah, so I forwarded it to Dr. Crankshaw and Alicia Coster, our incoming superintendent, and we missed our opportunity to talk about it last week at our agenda setting meeting. So we have a board meeting. Well, actually, I have a committee meeting tomorrow, so I'll probably have an opportunity to discuss it then. I think they're open to it. There might be some questions with regard to the structure of the pilot that comes out of the project, which those questions might not be answerable at this particular time. But it will have an impact on the district once that pilot is set.
Yeah, 100%. Okay,
Have they applied to HCR yet?
no,
No.
Okay,
no, I think the applications are in July.
Yeah, I think they actually aren't, like, the deadline is sometime in September. They haven't been released yet.
Yeah.
they're starting to get a release now.
Oh,
We've
they
got a
are.
couple of projects that we've got, the bank have gotten there.
Okay,
Okay.
so then he should be,
Yeah,
I know he's probably, obviously he's waiting on this as well, so we'll get this over to them.
so he obviously needs to show that he has like control through the operation,
Right.
which is the big thing, in the whole rush that we've had, it's day one, but so, yeah, so that's moving along and hopefully, I guess the next step would be submit his application, hopefully he's awarded, and then Kara, refresh our memory, or my memory at least, the HCR will, I don't want to say dictate, they will recommend the structure of what this pilot will need to be.
They're not going to tell him what it needs to look like, but they're going to heavily kind of encourage what it looks like for us. So he's gonna have to apply to the IDA with an application. You all are gonna have to come up with your proposal for that structure. Then if HCR reviews that and thinks that it will not meet their criteria for the rest of the financing, they may make some comments on that. Or they may not get as many points in the process.
The application process is highly competitive.
Right, so then when HCR is reviewing the applications, that's when he can then come.
No, it's gonna be a condition of closing.
Okay.
So they're gonna submit their application, and in their application, it says that we understand in that contract, if they exercise their option, it says that we understand that they're gonna come to us for a pilot agreement and that their proceeding with this project is gonna be contingent upon their receipt of a pilot, but you still have the opportunity to review, and if what you offer them, if that's not acceptable and to them, and it doesn't work out for them, they could still not move forward with the purchase. They wouldn't be bound to purchase. So they have an out if they don't either think the pilot works for them or whatever. But from HCR's perspective, the first step is to know that they've got site control and a contingency for that pilot agreement.
Okay,
So, yes, kind of unrelated, but we've seen lately in these projects obviously can be on the drawing board for a number of years. And the original HCR award might be a certain amount, and when the contractor's now going to put shovel in the ground and redoing their budgets, they're finding escalation in either labor or materials. HCR right now has been willing to provide additional money on top of the original award to help these projects get off the ground.
there's a big lag period in between the time of, yeah, so, like. The one we did in Glens Falls, we closed, it was a 2-part HCR project. The one project we closed, it's almost fully built out. And they haven't even started the phase 2, but they were awarded the funds at that same time, the HCR and a package tax credits. So you figure all that, almost a year has gone by. So what is that budget? I mean, that's outside of, I don't know the details of that project, but it's like you'd think after a year, that's a pretty,
The pressure on materials has come down. It's labor that's driving a lot of these cost increases right now.
yeah, from what I'm hearing, the supply chain isn't really the problem
No,
anymore, like it was during COVID, but
Yeah,
that's. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's gonna be we're gonna get information, it's gonna be
Okay. Back and forth. All right. Good. All right, now moving on, new business. I sent everyone an email in regards to a request that I received from a Hart Gill, who leases a space within the Lot Holdings building at Tryon, which was the former maintenance building that we sold to Lot Holdings. Mr. Gill informed me that he has an interest in the 2 chiller units that were installed by New York State prior to the state closing Tryon that services the Building 3 complex. Mr. Gill would like to install those chiller units at Building 60 for his use. And if not there, he has some other sites and businesses that he owns that he'd like to, he could transfer there if he cannot, if they will not work at the Building 60. And so he first approached me saying, does the IDA have an interest in giving him the units? So we had that discussion. We did, I did informed him, of the history, from what I knew, that the units were installed and then Tryon was immediately closed. And we don't even know if they were, if the contractor at that time was able to actually, run them for any period of time. And, they've been sitting there since 2011 or 12 now, not working. So, he figured that there would be some maintenance that we have to do to get them up and running. You'll see on the next page, just took a photo for you to refresh your memory. Those are the units. These are not small units by any means. I did not look at the specs on them. But you can see, we do have a disposition policy in regards to how we can dispose of assets that we have. See item B is highlighted. The fair market value of a personal property does not exceed $15,000. If we feel as though fair market or these units each do not exceed $15,000, then we can negotiate directly with Mr. Gill.
what is Mr. Gill's profession? Is he in the business type thing?
He's in the cannabis industry.
Okay.
Not 100% sure what he does there, but he's into the cannabis industry.
So basically, they're brand new units that have never been tested. And are we gonna give away, assets that are worth $10,000 each?
they've been sitting there for 14 years.
He'll be lucky if he gets them fired up and moved.
Yeah. I wouldn't classify them as brand
They're not-
new.
Yeah, they're not assets. No, you don't think so? They're big paperweights.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess I don't really.
I'm trying to think of which one's Building 3. And,
It's the big complex it's the former Midas building
okay,
that we're actually leasing to Mr. Lot right now. And then the auditorium and the pool and that whole big complex. That's where these are located outside. It's the one that's always being vandalized.
Right. It will probably be leveled if any development was to ever.
That's
go
correct.
there. You know, there's probably not an adaptive reuse for that property, for
No,
those buildings.
correct. No, no, because of the asbestos you found in there, obviously. Yeah, this is on the 115 acre site, under the option with Stanley, the big site that we have. So yeah, these will be, I'm assuming, you know, if and when we are able to take that complex down. I think would be at the same time they would demo these, or scrap them, right? Whatever the scrap value is, but be willing to move them. Do what he needs to do. I think that's the reason why he didn't offer us a lot of money. He said $500 each. I said I would take it to the board and let them know, so. I guess that's where we're at with that.
I'm thinking they've been there for 14 years and haven't been run. To today's point, I think you'd be lucky to find out that everything's in proper working order.
They've been sitting outside. It's not like they've been crated inside for 14 years. So I think there's a high probability that they've got some mechanisms that are frozen and they're gonna have to get in there and,
Corrosion.
yeah. So.
That mess.
Yeah. I'm okay with the offer.
He's like the kids have to scrap them.
Right.
I guess,
Yes.
As is no warranty. I'll give back.
Right. Right. No refunds.
Okay, obviously, we'd have to require certificate of insurance, or do we do them?
We would want, we can have his insurance and then we can get a hold harmless for whatever removing, a hold harmless indemnification when he does take it off site or he is moving them. And we can do a simple bill of sale that just says as is, whereas no, no warranties as to whether or not they're operational or anything like that.
I mean, this isn't something that, in my opinion, he's gonna have to hire somebody to do this, because obviously they're probably filled with whatever glycol or whatever, we don't want to do. Obviously, just rip this thing open and all that spills all over the place. There's gotta be some kind of,
If they even charge the system when they installed it.
yeah, there's no ideas.
Yeah.
But obviously it'd be his responsibility to clean that up. Treating it up every after, we could,
Yeah, we do.
so we can add that into the,
They'll have to get a crane to pick them and,
yeah.
or a wall or something like that to lift them onto a
Yeah.
flatbed to carry them.
That's what he said too. All right, Gary, what other actions we need to take on that? Obviously, motion, but.
Yeah, I mean, make a finding that it is not any longer needed for an IGA purpose or public purpose, and that you can declare a surplus and then authorize the negotiation with the assumption that they're not valued at $15,000 each, because that's the exception that would apply. Otherwise, you would have to put it out to public bid.
Will we have a charge from your firm? Or is that included in the fee that we pay for the whole year?
That would be under like the fee that we bill for under the annual fee, like our contract. You mean my preparation of those documents? Yeah, that would just.
I figure you could pay for that if it's gonna be $500 more of a.
Right.
Well, for $500 or $1,000.
I mean, that's your call. If you wanna have him pay for it, that's up to you guys. I can bill it separately. It won't take me long to do that. I mean,
Do,
Are you talking like $200 I mean, I don't know what you charge, so I mean,
I mean, I don't think it would be more than like, yeah, probably like $200.
I would just offer to let them pay for the preparation, use our money down the road for other things we need.
Okay, so
Just getting a fair price. She's not charging a lot, so $200 more is, I don't think it's gonna kill the deal.
can cover the IDA's legal fees up to $200.
Sure. For the Joe deals. Right?
Okay, so we all feel as though, these pieces of equipment are surplus, they have no value to the IDA. We feel as though they're valued under $15,000 due to their age. And you are okay with accepting $500 per unit and requiring Mr. Gill to pay for IDA's legal fees up to $200. Somebody like to make that motion? Make the motion. Dave,
I'll second.
Mike, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Okay. All right, 2025 goals, thought it would be a good time to just kind of review the goals that we set for 2025. There are many of them, as you can see. And just, I'd like to receive some of your feedback to see if we're obviously already working on those or have implemented those, and maybe an action item of what you want to start focusing more on. So item A, continue board and executive director training. And I think we've been doing that during some of our meetings. I unfortunately, because of my schedule, was not able to attend that IDA.
Brownfielders developers.
Yeah,
I went.
okay, yeah, you went there. So, and obviously, I think Sue went as well. So we've been doing that. Item B, maintaining the presence of the brownfields development, which we just went over, doing that. And determine the feasibility and develop an action plan for the development, redevelopment of sites, buildings within the cities of Johnstown, Gloversville, and villages for housing and or light industrial high-tech uses. We have not started that, in my opinion, other than assisting with the Brownfield Task Force to the CRG, doing the phase 1As and phase 1Bs. That is, but if you would like to start looking at some sites in the cities and the villages, I would recommend that, we do that in parallel with the CRG's Brownfield Task Force, because they're the ones doing the phase 1s and phase 2s, and that would be something we need to do anyway, right? So maybe the first step would be, I can share with you the list of the phase 1s and phase 2s that we're working on. I'm a part of that committee. So I believe, Greg, you're in that involved too? No, okay. Item D, commence the implementation of building Fulton County's future, the roundabout housing hub. That's one of the action items that the IDA and CRG are participating in as part of the county's development strategy. Really for the IDA, that was to continue to market the Crossroads Business Park for housing. It's kind of been that roundabout housing hub. So that's nothing else really has happened other than that. Item E, commence the implementation of building Fulton County's future Tryon residential incubator site. Again, if you all remember in the past, that's the site that's kind of located outside of the technology park proper and to the north. That particular tract of land is under option through Win Stanley. But I recall last year, Mr. Mraz indicating that he spoke to Adam, and Adam said he would release that site back to the IDA if the IDA had an interest in pursuing housing excuse me, on that site. I think the first step, if that's what we were thinking about doing, would be to start looking at what the costs are associated with getting the water and sewer up to the site. Many years ago, I don't really remember off the top of my head, but I do know that we did submit to the county a capital project to do that. That was quite a while ago. I don't remember what those numbers were, but I think that would be one of the first steps, as well as maybe some analysis, environmentals done on the site. If there's an interest in that, we can certainly start that. Item F, commence the implementation of building Fulton County's future, building demolition and substation support at Tryon Technology Park. Again, the building demolition would be what we were just discussed, that big building 3 complex. And then substation effort that we've been working on a little bit with Lynn Stanley. We'll actually talk about that a little minute or two. Implement the coordinated final goal of the Joint Executive Committee in relation to the shared toolbox landing page, which I believe we are well on our way with that. Utilize the county's dashboard matrix, which is Airtable, to track the IDA goals progress. I am doing that on your behalf already, as well as the regular planning department and CRG. I do get updates from Ron as to where they are in some of their efforts. I plug it into the Airtable, and I can show you that Airtable in the future. I get to it when I can, more or less, but it is being updated each step of the way. And then item I, had each member attend a board of directors meeting of the chamber. And I think we are on our way with that one. So again, just wanted to refresh our memory on our goals. And for me to get some feedback with you, if there's anything there that you need to work a little bit more on, or if there's something you'd like me to start focusing more on, as part of the goals. Looking for feedback? Yep, go ahead, Joe.
With the Chamber of Commerce attendance, was there a schedule put out for that?
What's that?
Was there a schedule as to?
Yeah, I sent out a schedule quite a while ago. I can send it out again.
Yeah.
Who has attended so far? Susan attended. Dan Rounds has attended.
I haven't.
All right, I can send you a schedule. I think. Mike-
I was supposed to go Thursday, but I can't.
Okay, yeah, and Sue's gonna go,
She's gonna go.
so I can send that back out for you.
Please, there, okay.
If you'd like. I believe Thursday, it's coming Thursday's their next meeting. If you want to go anyway, go ahead.
Thursday I'll be working,
So,
they're usually 8 o'clock in the morning, right?
yeah.
At the Allen House.
Yeah, at the Allen House at
FM.
FMCC.
All right, I'll just put me in the schedule now.
Yep, you're on there.
there.
I know,
All right,
I'll send that back out to everybody.
because we do the CRG ones.
Yep.
We do them.
Yeah, and I will, send you, the report, like we send to CRG. Sometimes I tweak it a little bit. But most of the time, it's gonna be what we present to CRG, and obviously, you can add anything you'd like. It's just some bullet points for you to talk about, so, all right?
So just on item C,
Yep.
I think the Gloversville, I think my impression has been pretty active in trying to get control of sites and then redevelop them. We know Johnstown has the housing designation that they got, but Gloversville has now. Has there ever been any talk within the county have like maybe a land bank to coordinate all these pieces? And does it make sense to do so?
There, in the past that there was, and for whatever reason, the county really had not been interested in participating in the land bank. I know that, there was an effort through the embed for a land bank, and for whatever reason, I don't remember, this was quite some time ago. I know that Ron had brought this up to our economic development committee in the past, and it just didn't seem like there was much interest in doing land bank, but I don't know, something what the IDA can do.
Probably something that should be brought up again, simply because I'm seeing it proliferating a lot around the state as another component of economic redevelopment of distressed properties or abandoned properties. And I do know the state does have some programs funding those. To, you know, some initial seed money, but you have to build a nonprofit around it. So there's some effort to get it off the ground.
Okay. Well, I can surely look into it and you report back. See what that process is, refresh my memory on that.
Government does it, so
Do it.
if you want to call.
Yeah, I can call
Ken
Ken.
can probably
Ken
talk to you about it.
Okay. Okay, we can look at that. Anything else?
I guess should in item E, should we talk about Adam? About the potentially releasing that parcel, if we're interested in doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I can revisit that with Adam just to see if he is interested in releasing that. I don't see why he wouldn't be still. I just know that when Jim talked to him, you know, about potentially doing a housing project there, that he really wasn't interested
Right.
in undertaking one, if I recall. But
How many acres is that?
please.
40?
Yeah, it's under 50. Yeah, it's 40. It's not huge, but you know, it is a green site, roads, kind of stuff. You know, I think another thing would be, you know, doing actually a market study, right? Something like that. It's not something we're just gonna start investing in,
Right.
you know. We're finding a developer that has interest.
Right.
But again, you know, we have that one site, we have control of it already. So there's the benefit there.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have any infrastructure, roads.
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
No wetland delineations.
That you would have to be.
Right.
Investing in, whereby I think the idea of start taking a look at. Some other sites that are in, you know, cities or villages even,
Yep.
and taking a look at those and saying, you know, what can we do to incentivize these to be built?
Yeah, I think we've talked here. Seems a better use to try to find developable sites in the cities for housing.
Or the villages.
Or the villages, yeah, right,
Yeah.
correct.
You know, villages are. I think you're gonna be able to difficult to do. I think it's politics of it, personally, I wouldn't say that, but
I want the old Dun and Light Billy.
yeah, you know, but you know, I'm pretty familiar with the village article, obviously. But again, why don't I share with everyone the list of the sites that we're doing phase 1 to phase 2, and we'll start there.
Yeah,
If you want to, there's a lot of them in the villages, and there's in the city of Johnstown. Not so much in the city of Gloversville, because they have their own process that they're doing, but quite a few in the city of Johnstown.
I have been happy to see the development on residential development, or the elaboration and progress with residential development promotion in the county, but having had some recent conversations with people who are looking for next stage housing in their lives, in this case, scaling down, wanting to get out of bigger places into smaller places, there just isn't enough inventory out there to support what people are looking for. And the cost of getting into some of these houses is far outstripping the value of the properties that are available. So we do need to continue to develop on multiple fronts with the residential side of things, multifamily and single family. So I'd like to see us continue to beat that drum a bit, you know. I know we have limited tools to be able to facilitate that. But to the extent that we can use our power and influence to advocate for it, I think we should. The other thing I would add to this list is, given my role on the school board in Johnstown, I've become aware of the fact that our school districts are oftentimes impacted by the decisions that we make. But with the incentives that we offer, specifically pilots, and then also when it comes to businesses that might be recruited to come in, that might be paying, full freight on their tax levies and stuff. I'm just sensing that our school districts are not as well informed about local economic development policy and action as maybe they should be. So I'm wondering if it makes sense to start to engage with our school district administrations in Fulton County. Not necessarily to invite them to these meetings, but at least maybe to have summit meetings. Where maybe you and the current IDA president, in this case Sue, and then superintendent, assistant superintendent, and board president could maybe sit down and talk a little bit about what initiatives are underway, and you can start to solicit some of their feedback in terms of how it might impact their communities.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know that puts more on your plate, but I'm just finding through informal conversation that our school districts really just continue to be somewhat outside the decision-making loop on a lot of this economic development. They don't even know what's going on. And unless they're engaged in meeting, going to chamber events or whatever, which most of them are too busy to do, they're just unaware.
So do you think efficiency wise would be better to meet individually, or would you say meet with the two cities and then meet with the, outside?
I think it's however you think makes the most sense. My sensibility is you might have to start with individual school districts just to kind of get the initial buy-in and build the relationship, and go from there. See what you could do to maybe it's just an annual summit that you invite all the school districts to one meeting, just to kind of say, hey, this is what's going on. Let's get some ideas flowing and some information going so everybody's aware.
Mhm.
You're on the education side. What do you think?
Well, I think that they are informed. I think they are unaware by choice or by, I think they don't recognize the impact. Because I think a lot of the information flow goes to business officers. The business officers translate that into the budgets, and the superintendents don't necessarily grasp the importance. So I don't think it's that they're uninformed. I think it's that they're not necessarily aware that they should be paying attention to the information flow.
The conversation will happen if there's a solar project in the community and the pilot set out. There's discussion about the impact the pilot will have on their tax levy formula. But their voice isn't really being brought to the table when it comes to setting the economic development policy, as near as I can tell.
Well, I don't dispute that they should be participating. I think that they need to have a better understanding of what their role should be. And I think some of that can be communicated through the district superintendent and the meetings that they have monthly. I think that could be almost a standing item or a regular item on their agenda, as opposed to, because I think they're so hyper focused on, pedagogy, curriculum, and unfunded mandates from the state, that they don't necessarily have the bandwidth or recognize the important part that this plays. So I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think another mechanism could be participation in those. You could get time on a monthly agenda with the district superintendent, because they've got all the component districts. You don't necessarily have all the players although they have the ability to invite them in, and those tend to be early in the morning too, so there's minimal impact. But I think there's ways to accomplish the discussion. And I think maybe a place to start is having an introduction. Because we also have pretty significant turnover in our superintendents. And they may just get their feet underneath them and then.
Another job opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
They're not-
And so they don't necessarily have the time to understand every aspect of what they should be doing. So I think your points are all valid and are important, and I'd be happy to work with Scott on.
Just so everyone knows here, by law, if we have a project, we're required to notify the superintendent. If the school has a business superintendent or whatever that position is at that particular school, as well as the board or chair. So we're required to notify them. But to your point, it's that next step. They've gotten the notice, but then what?
Yeah.
So a good time probably would be at the time that there is an application to really sit down and say, this is gonna be, because to your point, it does impact their budgeting because pilots go into their budget differently than an actual tax levy.
And I think because it impacts the budgeting, there could or should be some interest on the part of school districts to guide policy when it comes to that, so that there's an awareness by those entities that are setting the pilots, how those pilots impact school budgeting, so that, to your question earlier, well, how do you know how to set up a pilot? Well, there's nothing worse than a school district being told, this is what you're going to get. They've had no say in what that is, right? And, plus when you talk about developing housing, you're also now starting to talk about changing the population dynamics within the community. And that can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing, depending on the nature of the issue that's being discussed. So I really don't care how it comes together. It's just been my observation that some deeper dialogue should be facilitated to get school districts more engaged and aware of the role that they play in economic development.
Okay,
Is that enough of a list?
what's that?
Is that enough of a list?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, let's move on. I'd like to call for.
Can I just interject? I got a request from Five Corners Development. It's minor. They just want to know if you're willing to amend the unit count on the option agreement to say 60 to 90 units instead of 65 to 95.
She knows.
You're okay with that, Chair?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the change and then swap out the page when I.
Oh, okay. Just okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think we really, he presented it as really. depend on his hands, does he?
Yeah.
He didn't tell us this is exactly what it's.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
I would like to call for an executive session for the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property as identified in your agenda.
See you.
You stay. Stay here, please. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Make the motion.
I'll second. Mike, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, executive session. It's 9:00. So. All right, and the last thing on your agenda today, and thought it would be good for your IDA training, is we have Mr. Joe Russo here from National Grid to discuss the economic development program offerings or whatever else you would like to offer to us. A couple months ago, you asked if you would come and
Happy to do so, and more people that know about it, way better. You should. More people that know about our programs, the better. Since our economic development grant programs were created as a part of the merger settlement agreement when National Grid bought Nagamo, 2003. So they're over 20 years old. We've been operating them for since then. And we basically took, we looked at all the barriers to economic development, and try to create programs to manage those barriers, remove them somehow. So we have funding for to address these issues like the contribution and aid to construction, like the substation issue and the line extension issue. It's called the Electric Capital Investment Incentive Program. We've got one for gas too. Now, everything with gas, though, when we start to look at our incentives, the state has passed a law called the Climate Act, in short, CLACP, and they're trying to de-emphasize gas. So to incentivize gas growth is not popular nowadays, but we still have we used to have a gas capital investment incentive program to incentivize that. And that's going away. We do still have some we have a renewable gas program, and we have some other programs that are more green, if you will, that are still existing. But we also have we have community development programs. So Main Street Revitalization, the Urban Center Program, which helped to fund the project in Gloversville, which is great. We've got the Brownfield Redevelopment Program. So if you bought a building, it's got asbestos in it, you need to remove the asbestos and then demolish the building to create a site for construction. We can fund that. That's up to $300,000. So if you spend 1.2 million or more, that'll maximize that grant. We've got our Main Street Revitalization Program, which if you're going to buy a vacant building, we do a lot of work in Amsterdam. We've done some in Gloversville too, and not a lot in Johnstown. I don't know why, but if you buy a building and it's vacant, 100% vacant, or if you own a building that's 100% vacant, it's in commercial district, you can apply for a grant that'll help the cost of renovations, materials, and labor. So if
How
you,
much would that be?
well, it's a graduating, so it depends on how much you invest. So if you're investing $50,000 or more, your grant is $25,000. If you're investing $250,000 to $1 million, your grant goes up to $50,000. If it's $1 million to $5 million, it goes up to $100,000, and it graduates up from there. It goes up to $750,000. Our Electric Capital Investment Program, if you take service at transmission, like the trick here with Niagara is we can fund if somebody's taking service at transmission, our funding and they're investing more than $100 million or whatever. Niagara will qualify for up to $750,000, but it would be for taking service at transmission at 115, not just so sub-transmission and Herkimer will not qualify. 115, the grant goes up to $750,000. The problem is they're not going to go to 115. They're going to make their investment. The investment leverages the grant, right? So they're big investments up front. They're not going up to 115 until years later. So that's so they'll get 100, maybe they'll get 100, they'll get 500,000 instead of 750. So
what grant program did the CRG receive for Johnstown Commerce Park?
Johnstown, oh yeah, that is the shovel ready incentive program. That's for engineering and planning to create industrial sites, shovel ready sites. So at the end of the day, that site has to be certified shovel ready by the state in order for the grant to be paid out. We mistakenly paid out a grant to the IDA years ago, and it wasn't shovel ready certified. That was on me. I don't know if I just blew it off, or I don't know what happened there, but we have people that check these things. I have somebody, Karen Musa, who checks to see if it's eligible or whatever, and she missed it too. So the IDA got that money. And it would be great if we could get that site going. If some kind of an arrangement could be made with Mohawk and with the county intermunicipal agreement, because both the cornfield and the site across Comrie, they're the best sites in the state when it comes to power. Okay, and that's become so important in site selection. Every corporate real estate conference, every site selectors conference that we go to, that Ron goes to, that's the number one topic now. It's just all over the country because of AI and because of batteries and because there's all these big data centers. And we, from a power perspective, there are two 115 circuits running behind Johnstown Industrial Park. Then there's one running up from the front. So that's from the Gloversville substation, or there's a substation. Yeah, it's a substation to the on the edge of Gloversville. What's it called?
Pine Tree.
Yeah. So that's
On Johnson Ave.
yeah. All right, that's the one that's running horizontal. The other two circuits are coming up from Front Street down Fonda. So that's two separate circuits from two separate substations, which many advanced manufacturing other companies value highly. So from a power perspective, I don't know that there are any better sites. Maybe some in Western New York, but so it's going to take a while to get those developed, but it's worth it. It took 10 years to develop Luther Forest, and it took 10 years to develop Marcy too. So you're on the right track. We have programs that Ron and Ken use to do external marketing, to go out and go to these conferences, meet with site selectors, get some leads, get people interested. So we got those programs. We've got community development programs. We got infrastructure programs. We do have, and the other thing we're providing to Niagara is we have, the Excelsior Jobs Program is a state program. And if you're a manufacturer, you create 10 jobs, you can qualify. So Niagara's going to qualify. And so is the Amazon warehouse that's going to be built down in Florida. And that allows us to put them on the Excel. We have an Excelsior Jobs program rate, which replaced the old economic development rate that we used a lot right here in Johnstown back when Jeff and Pete were doing all that they were doing. That was all Empire Zone stuff then, and it was a real selling point. Okay, so now we have the Excelsior Jobs program. They will get electric and gas delivery for 10 years, as long as they remain certified, up to 10 years, and it's at our marginal cost. So that's the deepest discount you can get. So I provided the bill estimates to Niagara, and hopefully, I think that's going to be another plus for them. Okay, they're definitely not going to Massachusetts or Connecticut because our incentives are so much better. So, and I apologize for this. There's two meetings that I normally attend at this point, both on Teams, and I muted my phone and it still beeps. Anyway,
All right.
any questions?
Any other questions? Mr.
Good.
Russo?
Joe, I think from my perspective, I think our group has struggled at times to understand National Grid in terms of how services are provided, decisions are made, how to interface with National Grid.
Right.
What can or should we be doing to better interface with National Grid to prepare our prospective projects for the power needs that they are stating? What can we do to improve our position to deliver?
Well, you've already done it by having Sue be your chairperson. Okay, she deserves a lot of credit for everything that's happening now. Okay, and Sue was on the distribution design before, so she knows the intricacies. Did you work on Crystal Geyser, or I think that was Alex Hall or somebody like that? But the distribution design is very important, so yeah, there's a lot of policies and procedures and rules that have to be followed, and the more we can explain those things to you, the better off we're all gonna be, you know, 'cause it's complicated, unfortunately, but I'm always available. Anybody can call me anytime, and my number one job is to educate people about economic development and National Grid's role.
Gotcha.
So I'm happy to take calls from anybody that,
Okay.
and I'm happy to show up here too. Though I had to get up at 5 and 5.
It's coming from Sunny.
Services. Yeah, so Sue's good. Sue's the best person you can have to, to be your interface with National Grid. And she brings me in when she needs economic development. And the rest of it, she knows. So, so by having her on the board or as chairperson, it's the best thing you could do.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I think we've looked at, when we looked at sites or potential sites. We found out quickly that power was,
It's huge.
we can't be in Stratford, obviously.
Yeah.
Or, or Western Fulton County, we need to be near the distribution capabilities.
We took we can't share transmission maps,
Understood.
so I can take you on a tour of our transmission on our GIS, which I've done. And show you where they are. There's a golf course over near the substation, former golf course in Gloversville. That could be a good site from a power perspective, but it's hilly, yeah. Well, so is Western Massachusetts. That's why I don't know how Niagara's finding a site there.
In the girls? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the old Pine Brook.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flat part is over where is the other side of the Gloversville. It's just not great from the power perspective, but it's not terrible either. So,
And you had identified like the town of Mayfield had some options. They have
out there,
69 kV.
yeah, they do.
But you're in the Adirondack Park, so that's complex.
Permitting.
Right, there was the one site in the village of Mayfield, though, that had a very,
Yes,
The old.
there was a station there at one time.
Yeah.
a customer station.
Substation, the customers were on there, but
Right.
sign cap is there.
Yeah.
Coleco used to have that building.
Coleco, yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Date myself.
So at least the station was there and stuff, so it's, but yeah, I mean, those things get gutted. The one down Schoharie near the old knitting mill, that got gutted too, 69 kV. They sell off the copper and everything, transformers and such.
So what does National Grid have available for, say, a housing developer
That's
rather than?
a big problem.
Industrial?
Although the Public Service Commission, basically, they oversee our programs. And for some reason, they're living in the past. They separate housing from economic development, community development. Or they just separate housing from economic development. So they won't allow us to use any of our programs for anything having to do with residential. And it is unfortunate. So we would love to do it because that's about workforce. That's workforce development. It's so important.
We'll be your test case.
What's that?
I said, we'll be the test case.
Well, that'd be great. Yeah, I mean, they won't let us, they just don't want to discuss it. We've brought it up. We've got a new executive, we got a new director, our director, I worked with him for 30 years. Art Hamlin retired recently and Katie Newcomb took the job. She used to work with us in the Capital Region. About 5 years ago, she left to run the economic development for the Center for Economic Growth. And then when Art retired, she came back. Now she's our director. So she'll, she's fresh and new and she'll bring it up. The first time she gets to meet with the DPS. It's the staff. It's not the commissioners. It's the staff that have to be convinced and then they sell it up to the commissioners.
But right now, we're in the final area of the current rate case, right? Where
That's right.
next one will come out for 3 years, so any changes wouldn't happen.
A year, yeah. Well, we put our programs in every year. We have to put an annual report in every year on our programs. And that's when we can ask for changes. So, and we do, we ask for slight changes here and there, but that's a radical change, but it opens the window every year. So the window is opened every year. So, and we always like to get comments. We like to get public input, because it's the Public Service Commission.
Mhm.
The more public input we get, the more they listen. So,
So National Grid also has energy efficiency incentive programs too, and I was just read in on one that we offered to the area. Granted, this started like
yeah.
4 or 5 years ago or
Yeah.
something. We still haven't gotten over the finish line, but with all of the lights and air handlers and we worked with them on the build out their building and suggested things and helped to make them more efficient than code. And so when that incentive is paid out, that's about $1.2 million that we're giving them for something they were building in.
nice. Yeah. That started with Bob Mueller, who was our guy, and then Seth Brow replaced him, and now Seth is another job. Now it's Heidi Wentz. But we do a lot with agribusiness. I do a lot with agribusiness too. So I've helped a lot of farmers with grants for productivity and efficiency. So, all over. We started the whole program in Montgomery County back in 2003 because of Paul Tonko. He was the head of the Energy Committee for the Assembly, and he said, we need this. And so we said, sure. And I work with a lot of them because I've got a mostly rural area that I cover. I cover the North Country and these 3 counties, Genesee Valley too for ag. So we help them with 3-phase incentive grants to offset the cost of an extension of 3-phase. A lot of them are out on single-phase power. They grow they grow their business, and the loads get to be where they. Yeah.
The parlors, yeah.
Yeah, so the cost of 3-phase, is $75 a foot, thereabouts, if you get a mile away, that's a lot of money. So we help with those grants too.
Well, I still have a quorum. I guess we better close this meeting. Close at 9:55.
Make a motion.
Second.
Hey, thanks for it. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Nice.
Close. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to worry about if the new bill from downstate Democrats passes limiting dairy farms to 700